Konnichiwa. Welcome to Chocolate with Ed Garcia. I'm Ed Garcia, and this is chocolate, lovely chocolate, strawberry chocolate. My favorite. So get your chocolate, open it. I know you have chocolate. What's your favorite kind of chocolate? Strawberry. Okay. Bring it near your mouth. Ready, go. Delicious. Oishii, oishii. Okay, this is speech 23. Interviews should always include a primary examiner. We're going to discuss this in great detail, and also a second guideline. This is a first guideline and a second guideline for interview, a very advanced guideline for interview. But this is the starting point. Interviews should always include a primary examiner. Here's the table of contents in case you want to skip ahead to some part or later you want to figure out what is where. Now, who has the power? The power to sign a Notice of Allowance to allow your patent. Who has power? Let me tell you who does not have power. The inventor. No power. Who else? Japanese and US attorneys. No power. And the assistant examiner. No power. I was an assistant examiner for 4 years, and let me tell you, I know one thing: an assistant examiner has no power. Now, who has power? Who has great power? Who can allow a patent application? Well, there are very few people that can do this. We have the primary examiner, known as a primary. We have the supervisory patent examiner, known as a SPE or SPE. And we have a special case. Sometimes the assistant examiner may have TFSA, temporary full signature authority. What does that mean? That means he is in the training program to become a primary examiner. And at the very end of this program, they give him temporary full signature authority. Full signature authority means that he can sign a Notice of Allowance. But understand, this is temporary, and quality assurance is going to be watching him carefully, and supervisor is going to be watching him carefully. So full signature authority, kind of, okay? So myself, I don't want this person. If I'm dealing with this examiner with temporary full signature authority, I still don't want them. I still want a real primary examiner. The real primary examiner will have more experience, and he will have more confidence. Continuing, let's quickly review some recent trends in interviews because they have affected the way interviews work. Number one, interviews have increased from 20% of the applications to 40% of the applications. So the number of interviews that an examiner performs every week has doubled. Two, examiners are limiting the interview to 30 minutes. Very common now. In the old days, there were very few interviews, and the examiners often enjoyed talking a little bit with the patent attorneys about other things. In particular, patent examiners enjoy talking to inventors. But in the past, it was kind of a fun thing. But now, they're limiting it to 30 minutes because there are just so many interviews. Third, examiners are more serious and less joking. There are a lot of interviews. They just want to do it. They want to do it fast. And now this is interesting, number 4. Many assistant examiners now are holding interviews without the primary examiner. That almost never happened when I was with the patent office from 2001 through 2005. Just didn't happen. But now it seems more frequent. Now, what else? Cost. So what is the cost of a interview? There are many costs. So what does an interview cost total? Hard to say. Let's say $1,000 Juman, just for a number, Juman yen. Now, for this reason, myself, I think that many companies have too many interviews. There are certain times when you should have an interview, and there are certain times when you should not have an interview. Having said that, if you're going to have an interview, I suggest you should have a primary examiner present. Now, I'm going to present 2 guidelines for interviews. The first is here. Guideline number 1. Consider requesting a primary examiner. Depending on the case and on the assistant examiner, please consider requesting that a primary examiner attends the interview. See MPEP 713.05. Now, look at this wording. Please consider requesting. This is Japanese wording. Very polite, very gentle, okay? Please consider requesting. Now, what does the manual, the MPEP, the Manual of Patent Examination Procedure says in English, in American English? It says, should always. Now, this is a very interesting combination of words, right? Should is permissive and encouraging. You should. It's better if you do, but you don't have to. You can do what you want. Okay, should. Always. You see, this is a very unusual combination of words. The should is usually accompanied by something like should usually, or should preferably, or maybe should almost always, because the should implies sometimes it does not happen, right? Should. But should always is very unusual. It's a very strong encouragement. Should always, unless at some kind of emergency, okay? Should always, unless an emergency. This is the way I interpret it. However, this is Japanese English. Very polite. Many Americans don't understand this. Like me, I have a very difficult time understanding something like please consider. You know, I take please consider, no, okay, nah. But should always, I understand should always. Okay, let's continue. And the second guideline, which we will discuss in more detail later, but I will introduce now, is consider requesting an updated search. Now, there's a very special set of circumstances where you should request an updated search. Notice I say you should. Japanese English says, please consider requesting. But for any Americans out there, you should. Continuing. Now, back to guideline number 1. Let's discuss this a little bit. As I said, MPP 713.05 states a lot of things. It's a long thing about interviews and special circumstances and such. And towards the end it says, an interview should always include an examiner with negotiation authority, meaning full signature authority. That's what that means. You can negotiate to what will be allowed. If you negotiate with an assistant examiner and they say, yeah, I think this is allowable, but I have to talk to the primary, well, that kind of defeats the purpose of the interview. The purpose of the interview, according to the Patent Office, is negotiating authority. And why? Why do you need negotiating authority? Because so that authoritative agreement may be reached at the time of the interview. Authoritative agreement. That means there's an agreement, not with an assistant examiner that doesn't have any authority, but with the primary examiner or the supervisor who has authority, who has power to sign a notice of allowance. Now, the way this is written, who has authoritative, to reach authoritative agreement and negotiating authority, this language is carefully written to include the assistant examiner with temporary full signature authority, okay? So according to the Patent Office, they're very careful to write it this way. They don't say primary examiner or supervisor. No, they say someone with negotiating authority. However, I disagree. I don't want to help train the assistant examiner that's on the training program to become a primary. That's fine, that's good for him, but I don't want to incur the time and energy of trying to train him regarding allowances. No. I will request a real primary examiner, let me rephrase that. I will request a primary examiner, not just an assistant examiner with this temporary full signature authority. It's a small situation, it doesn't happen that often, but I try to avoid it. Continuing. Authoritative agreement at the time of the interview. This is important, okay? The Patent Office wants agreement now. They want to end the prosecution. They want the primary examiner and the applicant's counsel to reach agreement. Make this amendment and I'll allow it, for example, okay? At the time of the interview. Not next month, not after 5 things happen, no. Now, right now. So, for example, agreement between a primary examiner and a registered patent attorney. Okay? Simple enough. Continuing. Now, when you say this to attorneys and you discuss with them interviews, it's very interesting. Almost all of them say the same thing, and let's discuss these things. Difficulties and excuses. So they say, the first thing, oh, it's difficult to schedule an interview with the examiner. Oh, sometimes I have to call the examiner 10 times. Oh, it's so hard. You should never call the examiner 10 times. Let's just step aside here and talk about procedure for one moment. Why would you call the examiner 10 times? That's just crazy. You call him once, you call him a second time a day later, and if he doesn't answer the second time within 24 hours, you call the supervisor. It's very simple, okay? The Patent Office policy is that the examiner should respond to your telephone call within 24 hours. Now, the exceptions are if he's on vacation, in which case he should leave a message on his telephone stating that he's on vacation and telling you who to contact. So thus, let me repeat, this is a practical note. You should never call the examiner 10 times. That's just crazy. That's a waste of time and it's irritating. You should call the examiner and always make a note of when you call him. I call him today, Wednesday at 11:13, and then I wait 24 hours, nothing happens, so I call him Thursday at 3:52, okay? Slightly more than 24 hours. And now I wait until Friday at 4:15, okay? Slightly more than 24 hours. At this point, why are you going to call the examiner again? That's silly. No, you call the supervisor, okay? You have to be efficient, okay? Now, but let's continue. There's a reason why some attorneys make all these phone calls, which is the attorney loves the assistant examiner. You know, attorneys go to law school and they learn how to present facts and present arguments, and every attorney thinks that they can convince an Eskimo to buy ice cubes. They think they're very powerful, persuasive powers, right? And they'll say something like, oh, I have a friendly relationship with this examiner, which means, oh, we're friends. He's my friend. I want to be nice to him. He's nice to me. Yeah. And they also say, this examiner is very experienced and smart. Well, he may be, or he may not be, but if he's not a primary examiner, he cannot sign a notice of allowance. You're talking to the wrong person, okay? You're talking to the wrong person. If you want to marry a woman, you don't talk to her little sister. You talk to her. See what I'm saying? Continuing, here's another one. This examiner is on the training program. They always say on the program. The examiner's on the program. To become a primary examiner. Okay, well, that's fine, but he's not a primary examiner. In fact, the next question is, but does he have TFSA, temporary full signature authority? I mean, if he doesn't even have TFSA, if he doesn't have signature authority, full signature authority, then who cares if he's on the program? Frankly, if he's on the program, you want a primary examiner even more, because when you're on the program, you're very careful about allowing things. You don't want to have quality assurance or the supervisor tell you, no, that's a bad allowance. So you're very slow to allow. So this whole situation is a hesitancy of the attorneys to call in the supervisor at the appropriate time, let's say against the examiner. Oh, we're friends, we have a working relationship, he's very knowledgeable, blah, blah, blah. Well, okay, let me tell you something. Examiners do not love the attorney. They don't love attorneys. I have never heard a patent examiner say, oh, I'm really good friends with this attorney. Oh. Or we have a very friendly relationship. Oh my gosh. No. Most attorneys are in a fantasy land. Either they believe this and they're just totally wrong, or they're trying to convince the client that they have some magic power. Oh, I can argue, I'm so good. Now, let me tell you what examiners do say about attorneys. Sometimes they'll say, that attorney's really smart, well prepared. Okay, now we're friends. Hey, now we're friends. We're never friends. Understand, the patent examiner is not your friend. The patent examiner is not helping you. The patent examiner is a judge. We call it a quasi-judge, a kind of judge. He's a judge. On the one hand, he's considering the applicant's request for a patent, and that patent is part of public property. Okay? Anybody can do this until the patent, and the patent may exclude you from this piece of land. Now, so the examiner must consider, when he gives you this patent, he's also taking it away from the public. So he has to weigh the public versus the applicant, okay? And he's making a decision what to give to the applicant, okay? So the examiner is not a friend. He's not a friend. He's a judge. You need to treat him with respect and be friendly, of course. There's nothing wrong with being friendly. And but don't kid yourself. He is not your friend. He doesn't think he's your friend. Continuing. Now, guideline number 2. Let's talk about guideline number 2, immediate search. This one is a little bit complex, so we're going to go through it step by step. First, let's look at the guideline. Consider requesting an immediate updated search. We're going to read it, and then we're going to discuss it, and then we're going to give an example, and then we're going to read it again. Okay, here we go. After an office action and during an interview, a primary examiner states that previously submitted claims are allowable subject to an updated search. This is when it usually happens. There's we'll show you a simpler case, but let's continue. The updated search should be performed immediately, today or tomorrow, without waiting for any written response to the office action. Okay? So when you go to an interview with a primary examiner, okay, remember, negotiating authority, power to sign a notice of allowance. That's the person you want to talk to. And if they say the claims, not amended claims, but old claims, not proposed amendments, but previously amended claims or original claims, appear allowable. Okay, hooray, give me a notice of allowance. But then sometimes they say, allowable if. Allowable if when I search, I want to make another search, I'm not certain, it looks allowable, but maybe not. Now, in this situation, you should say, the updated search should be performed immediately. Please perform the search immediately. Thank you, primary examiner. Thank you for agreeing that we overcame previous rejections. Thank you for agreeing that it looks allowable. Now, allow it, or give me a new office action, preferably allowed. But now, do it now. Remember what the MPEP says, so that authoritative agreement may be reached at the time of the interview, okay? The patent office is pushing quick solutions at the interview. Reach a decision at the interview. So if the examiner wants to delay for an updated search, you should say, okay, Mr. Examiner, I understand what you're saying. Go ahead, make an updated search today or tomorrow, and let me know what happens. And then send me the notice of allowance. Go ahead, make the updated search. Be positive, right? Be persuasive. Yeah, it's going to be allowed. Go ahead, primary examiner. Make the updated search and then give me the notice of allowance. Please do that today. Today is a good day. Continuing, so without waiting for any written response to the office action, don't, Mr. Examiner, don't wait for me to file a written response. Just go ahead, give me my notice of allowance now, please. The simplest example is this, a white cat. Now, claim 1, original claim, says a white cat. Hooray! Now, we have a non-final office action, a first office action, using reference 1, a black cat. Well, that's not a good rejection, but nonetheless, the examiner was busy or he made a mistake and he made the rejection. So now you call the examiner up, primary examiner, or assistant examiner and primary examiner, and you say, that was a bad rejection. The previously submitted claim, white cat, original in this case, should be allowed. And the examiner says, you are right, Mr. Applicant, Mr. Patent Attorney, you are right. You are right. The pending office action that made this rejection is wrong. It's a bad rejection. And therefore, it appears to be allowable, but I want to make an updated search. I was confused, black and white is confusing. Let me take another look to see if I can find a white cat. I misread it, I was thinking cat. I didn't see the white. Whatever. Updated search. So, here's the problem at this point. During this interview, an office action has been sent and the applicant's clock is ticking, tick, 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 tick. If the applicant does not respond within 6 months, the application will go abandoned, correct? That's correct. Now, in fact, MPP 713.01 quotes 37 CFR 1.133B. Continuing. So anyway, this says, an interview does not remove the necessity for reply to the office action. In other words, even if the primary examiner said, oh, this is definitely allowable, tick, 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 your clock is still ticking, tick, 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 tick. The applicant's clock is still ticking, no matter what the examiner says, okay? Yeah. So what you need from the patent office is an official written communication. If not, your clock is still ticking. Ideally, you would get a interview summary, for example. An interview summary might say, it appears allowable, but we are going to make an updated search, and we, the patent office, will issue a notice of allowance or a new office action with new rejections within 1 week or within 2 weeks, whatever. So now you as the applicant, even though your clock is ticking, you're protected. You're protected because you have a written communication stating that they're going to do something. Continuing, but we are in advanced patent interview practice here, right? We're talking about this clock. Your clock is ticking, and I'm talking about ways around it, ways to force the patent office to take action because we don't want to take action. Okay, now let's talk about what usually happens. What usually happens when the primary examiner says the old claims, previously submitted claims, look allowable as they are without any need for amendment, but I want to be certain, I want to make an updated search, says the primary examiner. Well, what usually happens is the patent attorney, remember, an interview does not remove the necessity for reply to the office action. Tick, 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 tick. The clock of the applicant is ticking. If the applicant does not reply within 6 months, the application goes abandoned. So the pressure, the time pressure, tick, 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 is on the applicant. So the applicant usually files what I call a duplicate response. A duplicate response. What does this mean? It means pretty much exactly the same response that was filed previously. You're not going to present any new arguments. That would be stupid. You're not going to make any amendments. That would be stupid, right? Because the examiner says it looks allowable. So the only purpose of this response, the only purpose is to stop your clock, the applicant's clock, and turn on the examiner's clock. Now, if the previous office action was a first office action, then the applicant files a response, then the examiner will have, 45 days or 60 days to reply to the response. Now, if the previous office action was a final office action, then when you file a response, the response is an after final response, and the examiner, I believe, has 10 days to process, to write an advisory action or a notice of allowance or a new office action. Okay, so but the point is, if there is a pending office action and tick, 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 the applicant's clock is ticking, the applicant must file a response or the application will go abandoned, okay? So what does the applicant do? He files a duplicate response. He files a response exactly the same, a new date, and he charges the client for a response. Now, how much? Well, let me tell you, I'm a patent attorney. If I'm signing a response, even if it's a duplicate response, it requires my signature. Let me tell you, my signature is valuable. I worked very hard. I spent a lot more than 4 years, but at least 4 years to get an engineering degree, at least 3 years in law school. I prepared for the bar exam. I took the bar exam. I passed the bar exam. I'm a registered patent attorney. So that's a minimum of 7 years of training plus examinations. Minimum. How much money did that cost me? Incredible amount of money and time. A big chunk of my life was spent becoming a registered patent attorney. So now, if you want me to sign a document, even if it's just a duplicate, it's going to cost you. It's going to cost you. Minimum, I don't know, hour and a half just to change the date. Yeah. What is the minimum cost you've ever seen for a response to an office action? I don't know. I think the least I've seen is 1.5 hours. In this case, you might update the claims, you know what I'm saying? Put the claims into clean form. If there were previous amendments, well, instead of currently amended, you change it to previously presented, and you hit accept changes. Or one of my attorney friends said this: instead of a duplicate response, the only response that you file is a substance of interview. That's all you do. Your response is a substance of interview. You have nothing else to say. And in the substance of interview, you say, primary examiner on this date at this interview said it appears allowable subject to an updated search. One sentence, okay? But again, that's a response. How much am I going to charge as a patent attorney? Signing my name, which took me over 7 years to get that power to do that. Not 15 minutes. I'm not charging 15 minutes. Continuing. Okay, so usually the U.S. attorney files a duplicate response, no new claims, no amendments, no new arguments, and it should include a substance of interview. Now, that's easy money for the U.S. attorney, right? He doesn't have to think, he doesn't have to do anything. In fact, he should not do anything. He should not make any changes. He should not make any new arguments, okay? What he should do is absolutely nothing. Now, so this is a waste of time and money for the applicant because delays decrease the life of the issued patent. So this whole process of filing a duplicate response is bad for the applicant because one, spends the applicant's money, and two, decreases the life of the patent after it issues. Now, what can we do about it? Tick, tick, tick. The applicant's clock is ticking. And what we do is, what can we do? And the answer is we request an immediate update. Now, we can use Japanese style English words. We can say, Mr. Primary Examiner, would you please consider promptly issuing a notice of allowance or a new office action at your earliest convenience, so that the applicant does not have the burden and the cost of writing a effectively duplicate response. Okay. Or you could say, more Garcia style, maybe a little bit too aggressive, but you could say something like this. You could say, Mr. Primary Examiner, you agree this allowable, it appears allowable, thank you very much, please issue the notice of allowance now, right now. Or if you want to, if you insist that you think an updated search should be made, do it now. Do an updated search right now. I will wait on the telephone. Of course, no. Okay. Today. Do the updated search today or tomorrow, because it appears allowable. There's no reason to waste the life of the patent. Please, Mr. Primary Examiner, don't destroy the life of my applicant's patent. I'm not going to stand for it. If you do not promptly, today or tomorrow, do an updated search and issue either a notice of allowance or an office action with new rejections that I can respond to. If you don't do this, if you insist on my writing a duplicate response, which wastes my client's money and wastes the life of the patent, if you insist upon that, I'm sorry, I will have to call your supervisor. Now, we could do it a little bit softer than that, but you see my point, okay? You request firmly, and you say, okay, well, please discuss this with your supervisor and let me know what your supervisor says, because I know what the supervisor is going to say. The supervisor is going to say, perform the updated search now. Do it now. Okay? I know. 99% of supervisors will do this. Okay, so Guideline 2, immediate update. You should request the primary examiner to perform an immediate, today or tomorrow, updated search. This search should result in a notice of allowance or a sua sponte office action with new rejections. Sua sponte means spontaneous, but it's Latin, and lawyers like to say Latin, so it makes you sound really smart if you tell the examiner, please give us a sua sponte office action. which means do it now without waiting for our response. Do it spontaneously on your own initiative. Continuing. Now, here's where it gets interesting. You, as, as an attorney, even though your clock is ticking, tick, 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 you should not agree to file a duplicate response. You say, Mr. Primary Examiner, no, my applicant is not going to file a duplicate response. No, that would be inappropriate. I want you to give me a notice of allowance, or, based on your updated search, a new office action. It's improper for me to incur charges and delay of time for my applicant, who I represent, when we agree that the rejection is not good. You just said it appears allowable. Okay? Thank you. Allow it. Or give me a new office action. So you see, even though my clock is ticking, I say no, I'm not doing it. Of course I will do it. If the 6-month date comes, I will do it. But for now, I'm negotiating. I'm saying no, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. Okay, and here's where it gets tough. And contact the supervisor if necessary. If your negotiations with the primary examiner don't work, that's okay. Call the supervisor. Like I said, the examiner is not your friend. He is a judge. And if he's not performing his job well, then you appeal, either in a formal appeal or in this kind of thing, let's call it an informal appeal, to the supervisor. Okay? You contact the supervisor. You bring somebody in that really knows what they're doing, and they will correct the situation. Continuing. The interview summary should promise in writing an updated search within a specified period of time. Okay? For example, within 1 week. If the examiner does not say, I'll do it today or tomorrow, and send you notice of allowance or office action, then you should at least request an interview summary that states, okay, we're going to do this within 2 weeks. You need an official writing. Okay, I'll say it again. Your clock is ticking, and what you need is the notice of allowance or an office action or an official writing stating that they're going to take care of it, that they're going to do something. Otherwise, tick, 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 tick. The point of this writing is to set in writing a firm deadline by which the primary examiner will do his job and send you an allowance or a new office action without creating cost and wasting time for the applicant. Okay? Now, what does Maemoto Musashi say? Maemoto Musashi wrote Book of Five Rings, Guideline no Sho, very famous samurai, probably the most famous samurai. And here's a good drawing of him. He's practicing with wooden swords, just practicing. He killed more than 50 men in one-on-one combat. Okay? 63 and 0. Okay? He won 63, he lost a 0. Undefeated. And he says this in Guideline no Sho. This part says, translated, something like, do not do anything that is useless, according to my book's translation. Google Translate says, refrain from engaging in useless activity, such as duplicate responses. My translation is here. Avoid useless actions. Okay? A duplicate response has no new arguments, no new claims. It just spends time and money. The only thing it does useful is it stops your clock. Click, 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 tick, 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 tick. Now, I just showed you other ways to stop your clock. You want the patent office to take action on their own without waiting for your response, okay? Why should I do something useless? Maemoto Musashi says, do not do anything that is useless. Now, it does stop the clock, but other than that, it's useless. So you want to avoid doing it, you want to threaten that you're not going to do it, and you want to push the examiner to do something. It's his turn, okay? He has agreed that the claims appear allowable. So now it's his turn to allow or new office action without waiting for my duplicate response. Now what I'm saying here, all this second guideline, this is very advanced, right? You need a good attorney to do this. Continuing. So now we're going to reread the guidelines that I previously stated, and now that you understand what's going on, you'll understand what they say. Consider requesting an immediate updated search. After an office action, during an interview, a primary examiner states that previously submitted claims are allowable, subject to an updated search. The updated search should be performed immediately. Meaning today or tomorrow, without waiting for any written response to the office action, okay? Should be. So the job of the U.S. patent attorney in this situation is to understand, one, his clock is ticking, two, he does not want to write a duplicate response. He should push the primary examiner to take action, okay? Really, it's their turn to take action, and if the primary examiner is unwilling to take action, then you call the supervisor, okay? So here we come back to something related to the first guideline where, oh, we're friends, we have a friendly friend. No. The patent examiner is a judge. If the judge is doing improper things and is frankly abusing, you can use this word, abusing your client, ding, 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 it's up to you to go above the patent examiner to the supervisor. It's your duty. Don't let a primary examiner abuse your client. Now let me tell you, the word abuse and abuse, you use this word during an interview, ding, 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 red alert, emergency, let me tell you, this will focus the attention of the examiner, because abusing the applicant is a bad thing, okay? So when I'm talking about pushing the primary examiner to do what you want, you say, well, you can do it this way. Here's a good way to do it. I've been studying persuasion, okay? So there's various ways to persuade. Watch this. Well, Mr. Primary Examiner, yeah, I see your point, and yes, the applicant's clock is ticking, and yes, the applicant should file a response, but how do I do that? Well, please help me. What can I do? What do I put in this response? I don't have anything to say. I don't have any new claims. I don't have any amendments. I don't have any new arguments. They were already made in writing. You've agreed, Mr. Primary Examiner. You agreed it appears allowable. What am I supposed to do now? Please help me. How can I convince the applicant that he should spend money for a duplicate response which will just cause delays? See what I'm saying? I'm saying, help me. How can I do it? This is another approach. It's a very effective persuasion tool. I've been studying persuasion. So you ask the question, how can I do this? How can I tell my applicant that he should spend money to do something he already did? He already did it. You're right, Mr. Examiner, the clock's running, and and it will go abandoned if we don't file within 6 months, so please help us, right? Help us. Don't make the applicant do something useless. And then if you know Japanese, you can quote Maemoto Musashi. You say, famous samurai Maemoto Musashi says, you should not do things that are useless. Okay. Well, that might not work with the U.S. patenting, with the U.S. patent examiner. That might not work. But it's very interesting, right? Understand. What you can quote is something from the this is something you can quote. Say, Mr. Primary Examiner, MPP 713.05 states that the interview should always have an examiner with negotiation authority, that's you, so that authoritative agreement may be reached at the time of the interview. So, see, Mr. Examiner, Mr. Primary Examiner, the MPP says that we should reach agreement at the time of the interview, okay? So, I'm willing to wait while you perform a search right now. Or if you're very, very busy right now, tomorrow's okay. Tomorrow, do it tomorrow. And then tell me what happened, okay? Do it tomorrow, and then tell me what you're going to do. Send me the notice of allowance, or send me an interview summary saying that you found some new art and that you are going to send me a new office action, sua sponte, spontaneously, and that's okay. In fact, take another week. After you make the decision, send me the interview summary stating what you're going to do. And if it takes you another week or two, you can say 2 weeks, I can live with that. My client can accept that. But please, Mr. Primary Examiner, don't force my client to waste time and money doing something that's useless. That would just be, magic word, that would just be abusive. You don't want to abuse my client. No. You're a good primary examiner. You would never abuse my client because if you abuse my client, I may have to talk to the supervisor. You don't have to mention the last part, but the word abuse, ding, 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 okay? These are advanced techniques, right? Again, the examiner is not your friend. He does not think he's your friend. Trust me, he does not think that he is your friend. What you want is a professional relationship. You want him to do his job. And if he does not do his job effectively, then you call the supervisor. It's very simple. Very simple. Continuing. Okay, here's guideline 2 repeated. So we have guideline 1, request a primary examiner. Okay, you want a primary examiner. And guideline 2 is longer and it's here, but request an immediate updated search in this situation. Now, here are the resources. And this is the end of Chocolate with Ed Garcia. This was speech 23. An interview should always include a primary examiner. Okay, this is Garcia English. Should always. That's also MPEP English. Very forceful. Should always. And this was the best speech ever. The best speech ever. The best speech ever. Yes, it was. And we have Mount Fuji, Bay of Noboto, Noboto Ura. I don't know why. The Japanese like to put these things in the water. There's a big one over in Hiroshima that I went to see a few months ago. It's very nice. So the tide comes up, the tide goes down. Sometimes it's on land, sometimes it's on water. I guess that means something. I'm not sure what it means. And let's zoom in on these guys here. So these guys are carrying clams, some food. And what's interesting is they carry it differently, right? This one is carrying on his shoulders, and this guy, I don't know why, he's carrying it way over his head. Why? Why do they carry it different ways? It's very, very interesting, right? I don't understand. He's talking, he looks very happy. I guess he's going to have a good dinner. If those are clams, he's going to have a very good dinner tonight. And this person is carrying, I guess, a net. This looks like a net with 2 sticks. And this person is wearing boots. These guys are not wearing boots. See? Look. Oh. Something to store the fish in. All right. Mount Fuji. arigatou gozaimasu. Sayonara. 日本が大好きです。バイバイ。